Yeah, I'll just.
Okay, lovely. So, good morning, Cheryl Prince. Is it Cheryl or Cheryl? I always get that
Cheryl,
wrong.
even though it's a
Cheryl.
C, it's Cheryl. It's
No,
one of
it's
those
Cheryl.
funny names. Yeah.
Cheryl. Cheryl. So, welcome to Wise Women Weekdays. For those that know me, I'm Karen Dodd. I'm one of the Wise Women, and we love to chat with people about all sorts of topics. So, if you are watching this video, please like it, give it a thumbs up, and maybe subscribe to the channel so you get more footage of various subjects we're talking about. And it'll be great if you want to leave a comment. So, today I'm talking with Cheryl about all sorts of wild and weird and wacky things, really. So, firstly, tell me a little bit about yourself, if you wouldn't
Yeah,
mind.
absolutely. So I'm a theatre maker, spiritual actress, writer, activist, and healer. And they kind of all sort of come together because I kind of had quite a big spiritual awakening while acting, while changing my life around about 9 years ago. And everything kind of fused in the work that I want to make and the people that I work with, that actually bringing what I call the soul story center stage is very important to me. And that's been quite a big awakening for me and for everyone that I work with. So it's kind of, I feel like there's been a massive spiritual persecution of people throughout the ages and today. And I'm here to kind of animate that voice, support that voice, and help heal those people that are struggling with that.
So, as an actress, were you like just I say a normal actress, whatever that might mean? Or
Yeah.
were you, yeah, was there a niche kind of field that you were into?
Yeah, so I tried to be a normal actress. That's what I wanted, but it never pans out like that. Because I was a casting director for 12 years. So I saw the industry from one side and I was trying to fit in, even though I knew it kind of didn't work. I kind of looked at the industry and thought, I didn't really like the way it was portraying women back then. I thought there was really small roles. I didn't like the writing. So I was kind of just breaking out and doing my own thing. But as soon as I started to train in acting, I saw a spirit for the first time. My nan.
What does that mean? When you say you saw a spirit, what you saw like a ghost or?
No, so it was my nan. So my nan had died 5 years before this. I wasn't particularly spiritual back then. I was very open to energies and things, but I wouldn't talk about it. I wouldn't necessarily be tapping in. I was a little bit hedonistic. I was a party girl. So I'd pretty much closed off. And then I started to audition for acting, and the spirit of my nan came into the room, crystal clear. She told me not to be so afraid, and she placed her hand on my back, and then she disappeared. And I thought I was a bit barking. I thought, I don't, what's just happened? I was excited because I was like, oh my God, death isn't the end. And I was like, wow, this big wake up. But I didn't know what to do with it because it was a bit big and nothing like that happened. There was no one to speak to about it. But the next day, the director called me up to audition, and he looked me in the eye and he put his hand on my back and said, don't be so afraid.
Oh, wow.
And I started to cry because I was like, oh my God. And he said, there's an older woman around you, light a candle for her when you get home.
Oh my goodness.
And so I auditioned and I channeled for the first time, which is what I mean by that is when spirit just comes through you and it's bigger than you.
And
And
so did you know about channeling, or was this just no, you just like had this feeling that, so is it
yeah,
like
it was
something
like,
taking over? Are they taking over your body when you're channeling? Oh, okay.
yes. So it feels like like I do so a lot of energy work. And when you get your energy alignment, it feels like you've got a lot of energy in your body. And it felt like that, but I didn't know anything at the time what that was. And what happened afterwards is I began to tap in all the time. So I'd hear voices. And to be honest, it was overwhelming because obviously we have a big paradigm in this society about mental illness, if you're hearing voices, feeling things. So I didn't know what to do with it. I felt a little bit cursed. I was like, oh my God, all this stuff's happening to me. And that's what led me to go off and train as a healer, to just understand what was going on. And I kind of want to say about channeling, because most of the people I work with these days, I teach writers how to channel their own writing. I teach actors how to channel spirit. The most important thing to know is that not all spirits are good. And so channeling is quite a craft, which I learned from getting my fingers burnt through training in angelic Reiki, and not knowing that some of the angelic spirits, demonic entities, whatever you want to call them, aren't all pure. So
no, because you have the fallen angels, don't you? Which kind of yeah.
You do. And the thing is, in the New Age and the spiritual community, most of the teachings touch on, love and light, which is amazing. Of course, you should be connecting in with that. But then what happens when you're not? And if you're not, that's kind of one of the main reasons I do what I do, is to speak about protecting from the dark, because we are in a dark age, bad things are happening on our planet. And that doesn't mean just in the physical 3D realm. It means right throughout the realms. I call it a spiritual war that we're in. So, yeah. So that was my trying to be a normal actress. It didn't work out.
Okay. Wow. But they're all lessons, aren't they? When people say, oh, things went wrong, I said, well, it's just a lesson. It didn't maybe the way you wanted it to go. So you've learned from that, and it directs you on another path. I think if the path was straight, we'd be bored. So we need to, sometimes below the road less traveled, as they say, to get where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, and it led me on to writing my own, which I'm writing a trilogy of plays, and I call it writing my own source story, because what that experience led me on to is I was like, why aren't people talking about this? And the more I've talked about the stuff that's happened to me, the more people I've met that have gone, that's happened to me. That's happened to me.
Like a magnet, aren't you? Yeah, the synchronicity, law of attraction in a way.
Yeah. And the healer, so when I was training as a healer, what led me to write my first play was I did past life regression work, and I saw my past life when I was hung for being a witch. And I had no concept about witches. I mean, now witchcraft and magic is my world, to expose the true wealth of what it is. But back then I didn't know what witches were, and I didn't know why I was killed for being one. And I wrote my first play to find out why. And now what I realize is that basically the mediums and the healers and the cunning folk were killed off by the fallen side of witchcraft, Satanism, which is, what leads me to most of the work that I'm doing at the moment, to expose that.
Because witches are, they're very active. I have several friends who give themselves the names of a witch, and you have the white and the black. So not all witches are bad, but I guess some witches aren't so good. Is that correct? Yeah, which is what you're saying.
Yeah, so I spent a long time being a person that was like, oh, I was killed as a witch. And then I did a lot of speaking about standing up for witches, because I was like, God, they've had such a bad, been killed off throughout our centuries, been persecuted. And so for a long time, I was wanting to relabel them in the dictionary, and I was really fighting that cause. But then later, I kind of realized that I didn't want to look at the dark side of it. I was like being a little bit blind. And the problem is, in secret societies and hidden there is the same occult. And witchcraft is used horrifically against people. And so if we ignore this side of it and only look at the light side, what I believe is that the healers and the cunning folk that were working in the 17th century, in the period that I was writing about, they had spells to protect people from this dark magic.
Yeah.
And wiping out that people meant that those people couldn't protect anymore, and those practices were hidden. And then what came in was the Enlightenment period, and science and physicians. And instead of the old medicine, we got the pharmaceutical industry instead, which was set up by a totally different paradigm, which I would say were the dark witchcraft.
So are you saying that people working within the pharmaceutical industry are all black witches then, or dark witches, or are they naive? Do they not know? Because most people that go into the medical world do it to help people, don't they? And doctors take an oath to help people. So are they being sort of played as such then? Do they not know what's going on?
So thank you for asking that. So basically, me personally, I thought I really believed in the healthcare system, doctors, even though I was working as a healer for a long time. So I have a different view on how we heal the body.
Yeah.
I'm like, if it's not connected to spirit, it doesn't make sense to me, because all illnesses, I believe, come from a disconnect from the soul. Then it's the energy, and then it gets into the physical. So whilst I was always a different belief set, I really respect the NHS and hospitals and things like that, until my dad got sick over the past few years by a turbo cancer, and I had to watch him die a very painful, misdiagnosed death, and care for his soul on another level, which is a bit of a deeper healer practice. And what I realized was that I think I'd given my power away somehow to a system that I felt knew more than me. And my learning was, no, I wasn't dealing with unkind people personally. I was dealing with people that were trying to help my dad, but they were a bit clueless. He was totally misdiagnosed, and I knew why his cancer accelerated. I was very clear about that. And it felt like other people around me weren't really talking about the issue of what was really going on. And so my own experience, I can only say, yes, I think most doctors and nurses do it for the good of their heart and are trying to help. But I think right at the top of that paradigm of who's funding that, no, I don't think that they've got humans' best interests at heart. I really don't.
Well, it's interesting, I think, when we're just talking about doctors and the medical profession, it might have changed now, but I know through my journey of various things that I've tried, I've dabbled in all sorts of stuff. And I understand that doctors, they only like to have an afternoon learning about nutrition. It might be a week now, I don't know, but you know, we are what we eat, basically, aren't we? And I think it's interesting. I very rarely go to the doctors. I try and heal myself as well, but there are times, you know, there is a need for them for sure. But if I have an illness or an ailment, no, it's not so much a cold or something, because then I'll take the vitamin C and wheatgrass and all sorts of stuff, and vitamin D, and get fresh air, all those things. But it's interesting how they never will ask about your diet. They've never asked me about what I'm eating. If I have gone with it, I used to get bronchitis quite a lot, and they would never say, well, try to eat these things to help you. They just give you medication, which I don't like taking. My mother used to love it. You could shake her and you could hear all the pills rattle, you know, and I think that's partly why I don't want to go to the doctor, because my mother would always send me to the doctor as a child. And I think, no, I can sort myself out. So I think nutrition, you know, and lifestyle has a lot to play to avoid us going into the, you know, the medical realm of getting well. But
Yeah.
anyway.
And that's what I found with my dad. He was just getting medicated, and he was saying, I'm in pain. What's the pain? And it was because they'd missed the cancer because it spread so fast, which has happened to a lot of people over the past few years. And it was like they weren't able to deal with it, because it was just, oh, we have to medicate. And, you know, they were under the hammer too. They didn't have time. You had tiny little slots. You know, the pressure's been put on everyone. But I ended up doing energy healing, with just doing the other work right until the end, because I was like, he needs more. And I remember giving my dad a massage in hospital, right, had a few days left to live, with oils in my hands. And he was like, and that was intuitively, I was like, how can I help him? And they were like, get some oils for pain and get your touch and help him. And so I did that, and my dad just looked at me and was like, that's the best thing anyone's done.
Oh, and I think it's touch. I'm so sorry. Are you okay talking about your dad? I'm so sorry for the loss of the recent loss. It's not like losing a parent. I've lost both mine now many years ago. But I think the power of touch is also not remembered, you know, as a healing modality. And especially as we have, you know, gone through a weird session, it's like, God, did that really happen to us over the last few years? But how, you know, we were encouraged to be separate from each other, and how people felt very lonely and they didn't have that touch. And it is so important, you know, a hug, or just a, you know, if a child falls down, the first thing you would do is, you know, see where the scratched knee is, and then pick the child up for a hug. And sometimes that's all they need. So again, in this world that we've gone into, with people getting so ill so quickly and going into hospitals and taking the medication, we don't always think about those basic needs that are human needs. So, you know, well done you for going in and doing that to your dad.
Yeah. And I do remember I had, so he got COVID were in the hospital, and they said you can go in on your own risk, but he's being isolated. And I was like, I'm going in. I spoke to my sister, we're all going in. We don't care. We all went in, and the plus was he had his own room, so I could do things the way I knew how to do them, like play music, do some healing. And I just sat next to him holding his hand, and that was the important stuff. So you're right, it's like, without touch we get sicker. We need that. We need that, especially when we're vulnerable. Like, it breaks my heart that I know people that didn't get that opportunity, weren't allowed in, and that's quite heartbreaking.
It is. I think maybe now retrospectively people are looking back to think, was it done, not for the right reasons? Obviously, those that are trying to look after us as a population globally, they think that's the best thing. But now in hindsight, they may realize that it's not. We did need to be together rather than segregated. But it's happened now, isn't it? So let's see if we learn from that lesson.
Yeah.
Going back to the witchy thing then, I mean, I'm very happy for you to just flow and talk, but I just wanted to talk because I know when we've chatted before, we've talked about the witch's wheel of karma. I mean, does that come in now? Is that the right time to bring that in?
Yeah, perfect. So it's actually it's kind of my dad that got me onto this, because he got ill on the Lion's Gate, which is quite a big, powerful portal of the year. So me, as a witch / healer back then, I was working with I was releasing my play on the summer solstice because it was an important time. I wanted to align my work with Halloween or Samhain. And so you have all these, what I'm working with now is the 8 portals of the year, which are really powerful portals. Like Beltane, most healers and spiritual people work with these and go, oh yeah, let's do ceremonies on these dates. What brought me through going through the events of the last few years and really having a massive awakening to what I feel was really going on, was that, oh my gosh, so while we're using these sacred dates, on the same dates, there is real horrific satanic ritual abuse going on the same dates. And this can be looked up by all abuse survivors. They talk about it, and there's websites. If you just put in satanic ritual calendar, you can find it anywhere. It's not hard to find. And I think I've been running a witch's wheel of karma to bring awareness to, yes, these are sacred dates, but on those dates, particularly now as we're running up to Christmas as well, what's happening around sacrificial energies around the 24th is very, very dark. And I've kind of made it a bit of a mission to create a movement, especially as someone that has in her soul's lineage been killed for being called a witch, that actually witchcraft is still going on. And the wrong people got killed off.
Right.
So I wanted to shine a light on what's still going on in the name of like satanic ritual abuse that many people talk about, that's very much there, but it's been very kept under wraps. And to make it known, especially to the healing community, that we need to look at this, the dark side of the portals that we're working in. And actually, that kind of led me to Ireland and to go and visit the Hellfires Caves and go to visit sacred lands and feel into what happened on these lands. And
so, yeah, why Ireland then? What's gone on in Ireland?
So basically, I went to the Hellfire Caves outside of London first.
What are the Hellfire Caves?
Yeah, so basically what they were, so this is quite interesting to know when they were set up and who they were set up by. So you had all these witchcraft laws come into place back in the 1500s.
Yeah.
And so the king would set it up and go, okay, this is a crime punishable by death. But the same royals that put these laws in place, there was all sorts of magical stuff going on with the royals when you have a look at it. So they're setting up rules for the public saying you can't do this, but yet you get Queen Elizabeth, for example, who brought in a law and made it a bit like, oh, it's not punishable by death, but you can't use dark magic. Yet she was working with John Dee, who's an astrologer, who's conjuring angels. They're working with the forces, but no one else is allowed to because they might be a witch. So we've got this witchcraft law going throughout our history until the 1700s. sorry, the 17th century, when suddenly it's changed the laws and it's like, oh, no, you can use it, but you might be called a fraud and you might go to prison for being a fraud. Around this period, you've got grandmasters, Freemasons of London and Ireland opening up the Hellfires Caves suddenly, when you could openly speak about the devil and the dark side and practice it. Now, these clubs were set up as private clubs for, I mean, Benjamin Franklin visited the one outside of London, and it was in High Wycombe. And it's known that they would do ritual abuse. That I actually went to them, and there's an underground tunnel. There's a child's coven, and it's all done in a ritual. And they say that they were worshipping the devil quite openly because they were debaucherous and they were fun-loving. They'll do whatever they liked. Do what thou wilt is on the top of the building as you go in, which is made famous by Aleister Crowley, who is a very known Satanist. So nothing's hidden. I went there on Halloween because I'd seen a program by David Icke the year before saying how much demonic sacrifice energy there was in it. And as a healer, I got the call to go and find out myself to see if I could heal anything. I went in there and it was vile. It was vile. I could feel like all of this horrible energy in it. And
so it's a place that's open to the public, and anybody just go in there?
Yes.
Like a museum or something. And where is this in London?
So it's just outside of London at High Wycombe, and it is worth going. I invite anyone to go and check it out for themselves. I went on Halloween, which was even worse. So I think it's open all the time. But what they had in there was, I went with a friend and we were shocked. They had little caricatures of people with slit necks, body parts on the ground, like all of this for children to go and witness. On the cave walls were what they used to do in there, which was mimicking this. So I was like, you're not hiding. And if you look into satanic magic, you'll see that there's ritual signs of all that kind of abuse, which was mirrored for loads of kids to go and experience Halloween. So I call it trauma bonding, and people that don't know are going to witness all of this horrible abuse. So I found it shocking, and I did a witches wheel event about it, and I showed it to everyone, and I was like, this is what's going on. And we did healing together on those lands. I did some healing when I was there, and I do work which is soul retrieval, which is any lost soul, harmed parts. I help get them to the light. And many people don't know this about magic, but the magical rituals keep souls stuck. They harvest souls and they harm the human spirit. So I do feel it's one of the most important works we can do if we're healers, and if we're not, to bring awareness to this, so that actually that it doesn't go unnoticed. Anyway, so I did that, and then I did a medium session. So I speak to spirits, and what came through was a young boy who was went missing in Ireland about 36 years ago. And the person that I was doing a reading with is who I work with, Ema, who I run the Witches Wheel with. Now, she grew up with this little boy. He went to a school nearby her. They lived on the same road, and he went missing a long time ago. And she didn't really kind of know why he was coming back in, but he was calling us to go to the Hellfire Caves in Ireland and to look at that. And so we both kind of went, okay, we'll go, we're getting the call. And so together we walked the lands of Ireland. We went to Newgrange, a sacred site first, where the energy was really lovely, but we were taken on a tour and just kind of told loads of stuff on the tour that we were like, this doesn't feel right. This feels like propaganda. I find you get that a lot around the stone.
I found that myself, yes.
Yeah. And then we went over to the Hellfires Cave, which was down the road from where she used to live. And as I was walking up the hill, my whole body was shaking. I was getting anxious. And I was like, this is horrible, horrible. What I didn't know was it used to be shut off as hunting grounds, where they could do what they like. They took the sacred stones from the sites to build the Hellfires Cave. And there was all, just obvious that all satanic rituals were taking place there. And I got shown a lot of different stuff about what really happened there and why. And there's some big healing work to be
So
done.
when you say you were shown like on a spiritual level, yeah?
Yeah. So I could see how people had died there, how many children were taken up there. So yeah, I kind of have a split role where I do some research, but most of my stuff comes through channeling, and then it comes through as I find out later, oh, that was fact, that was fact, that was fact. For example, my third play, I wrote about 4 years ago a premise for it, and it was about a virus sweeping the world and everyone wearing masks, and it was the start of this transhumanist agenda. And I knew nothing at the time because I was quite spiritually naive, and then everything kind of happened, and I started to research, and I was like, oh,
Mm. When
okay,
you
there
start
is
looking,
something.
and I think it's also that there's a karmic law, I believe, that says, you know, everything's in plain sight. So those that are doing naughty things, let's put it mildly, are telling us through various channels that this is what they're doing. I went to see the new chocolate factory last night, the
Right.
movie
How was
Wonka. Yeah, I'm actually working with my daughter and her boyfriend, or just my daughter, in Winchester at the Christmas market, because she's just launched a product of plant-based chocolates, and we're selling them at the market. So it's quite coincidental that the Wonka movies just come out. So we went to see it last night. And when you learn about the history of chocolate, for instance, that's quite interesting on a smaller scale, how the
right?
large companies have like tried to buy each other out, or, you know, there's been a little bit of not very friendly relationships going on in the background. I won't say too much because that's more about chocolate, but it's just about businesses and corporations. So that was quite interesting. But I don't want to, you know, be a spoiler alert for the movie. It is very interesting to see. But my daughter and I, we were just connecting so many things, which is what you're talking about, like, I don't know, tunnels and people being kept underground, and we just thought, oh, it's like they're telling you again in plain sight, this is kind of what's going on. Because, you know, you hear lots of stories. I don't know how true they are. You know, you hear things about Disneyland, don't you, which is quite interesting. I don't know how true those things are, but it is
Well, the
yeah.
tunnels is is an interesting one, because I'm actually bringing that through on our workshops. I'm running a workshop on the winter solstice week.
And that's on the 21st, isn't it?
On the
Solstice.
21st, yes. And we're remote viewing the castles, which are said to have tunnels underneath them. Now, some people say, oh, yeah, this is not true. But actually, there's been people speaking about it, going, oh, yeah, I went down there. I've actually found footage of tunnels going under there. And I was actually watching a YouTube video by Brian Harvey, who used to be in E17 and then got the boot. And he's talking about the experience he had of going into a private club, and it linked all the way to Covent Garden, and
Wow.
lots of people that he names, but he's getting silenced. And yeah,
And
so
sorry, Brian, who?
Brian Harvey, if you just look up, yeah, it's a really good video to watch, because it's his own, you know, we can only share what we've experienced ourselves, because obviously there's a lot of stuff out there to navigate through about what is true and what's not. And kind of one of the reasons why I do sort of remote viewing with people is to go, okay, how I do it is, here's a space, here's a picture, and now I take them on a meditative journey to see what they find themselves. And and that's what I do one-to-one as a healer, and people find a lot of stuff. And what happens is it tends to all match up. People are going, I saw the same thing. And to me, that is like the best truth that you can get, because it's like you can. And the forces that be do use this same mediumship skill. They remote view and try and twist paradigms. So I think a powerful way to do it is to use the spiritual ability, the supernatural skills, the mediumship back at them. Play the own game. You can view things that you wouldn't be allowed into as such.
So this is remote viewing. It's like a form, for those that may not have heard of it, it's a form of kind of meditation that you'll guide people, and in their own mind, they'll take their mind somewhere else and have visions or experiences or go to places.
Yeah.
And we do that as a collective, as a group of people. We all, then you don't realize at the time, but when you write your notes afterwards, you say, "Oh, I saw that in my mind as well." Is that
Yeah.
kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So it's basically, I call it soul reading. Because when I work, as I've worked as a healer and sort of developed my own practice, I will tap into somebody as I'm guiding them, and I will see the same things that they're seeing. And then I'll guide them. And gradually it made me realize, oh my God, everyone has this gift if they want to tap into it. They can access these different realms, they can access past, future lives, timelines, underground tunnels. And actually, through sometimes I guide people and sometimes I just hold space. And then I hear them telling me exactly that I'm seeing the same thing. So I think it's just bringing people to the awareness that we are all multidimensional mediums. And by that, I mean we can tap into souls, our own souls, we can tap into spirit, we can tap into entities if we're not careful, if we're not aware of that, and get led down the garden path. And we can tap into the memories and the spirits and the souls of the land. So the best way to kind of, for me, to expose this kind of abuse is to tap into the realms and find out what's going on there and then bring healing to it. But it's quite beautiful when you have done that work and then you find other people out there telling you the same thing that have been, say, abuse survivors in this life.
Yes.
And, oh my God, that's exactly the same information. So for me, because so many people have been ghosted and silenced for so long about spirituality, about this abuse, about this dark side of magic, that if we can come together as a bit of a tribe and go, yeah, I understand it, I've seen it too, and bring a voice to it, I think that's how the biggest healing on our earth is going to occur over the next few years.
Why do you think this has happened, Cheryl? What I mean, when we talk about fallen angels and satanic ritual and abuse, I mean, what is going on here? Why can't we all just live happy ever after? Singing Gangooli around the bonfire every night and eat chocolate.
Oh, I would love that. And I love chocolate. So I'm so glad you brought chocolate in. My belief is, and I take this from being an old soul, being here many, many times and seeing many, many lifetimes. That's where I get my wisdom from, is that we, human beings with souls, can do that. We can do that. We would quite happily be around the fire, be in love, share, be in community, I believe. The force that's come into humanity isn't the same as us. And as soon as we realize that we are not talking about something with a soul, we're not talking about something that sees humans as anything other than slaves they can use and abuse, then we'll realize that actually we have been programmed so hard to turn against each other because we are not naturally like that. And then once we see that actually, and it's really hard, especially as an empathetic human, you want to see the best in everybody. And you think that the force of evil isn't a capacity, you can't get your mind around it. But to be honest, with what I've worked with in my healing work, and so I've just seen it, I was like, oh, this is such a force, and it's not human.
Oh, okay, so it's off planet, is it, as such, or?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of entities and very dark, energetic things that I don't know what they are. I couldn't put a name to it. That's what I see when I go into viewings. And I do know that a lot of artificial, I mean, my biggest sort of concern right now is an artificial sort of cloned agenda where it's not got any soul in it. I see that a lot. So I kind of don't want to limit it to names, but I think that's kind of what seeded our humanity. And I don't think it was seeded from Earth. I think it's come off planet in to harm humanity and to keep us trapped. And I think it's very, I'm gonna rephrase that. I know it's very, very ancient. So we've been in this war for a long time.
Do you think, like, when you hear of stories of Atlantis and what have you, and when humanity has got to a certain level in their society and in their knowledge and their wisdom, but again, I don't know if these are myths or these are legends. We've got to that level and we've become very technically able, let's put it that way, but it's not been used for for our highest good. It's kind of been wiped out. Are we at that level now, if that makes sense? I don't know if I've articulated that very well, but we're coming with the technology that's coming, and we're becoming, these all these things coming. It's happening way too quick for many to keep up with. Just seeing at the market the amount of people who want to use their phones to, not phones, their watches to pay, for the chocolates that we're buying, or their phones, or the cards, and like cash is disappearing, which I think is not a good thing. I like to have cash. You have freedom with cash, and you can put a fiver in your grandchild's birthday card, can't you? Or give money to the homeless, so they don't all have these little, credit cards or debit cards. So going back to my original question, do you think that's where we're at now? We're becoming so technically advanced that we are losing that lovely being human feeling. And if it's not for the greater good of humanity, then some entity is going to wipe us out, so we start again. Is that where we're at? Are we going through a new paradigm shift?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when lockdowns first happened, I lost all my opportunities to put my play on. Got my work taken away from me, and then I couldn't get into theatre for choices. And so what happened was I started to write my second play, because I was like, well, I'm at home, I'm going to start writing. And it all came out to be about ancient Egypt, and the technology and the modern day trajectory we're on about being microchipped. And at first I thought, oh, is this just a story? But some people might not know that ancient Egypt's meant to be linked with Atlantis. So the same people broke a portal through ancient Egypt, and that is where very distorted technology was seeded. And so it's a battle between good and bad, really, if you want to put it that simplistically. And what I felt was happening over this period was that a lot of us, and myself, I've had lots of lifetimes at Atlantis. I remember it well. I remember the gifts people had. And I work with a lot of people that are reawakening to the Atlantean period. Is that a lot of us are here to kind of to bring souls back, and a lot of the artificial agenda is eventually you'll be so synced with technology that you won't, your soul will just be gone. And that is what I'm writing the play about, to awaken as many people I can to where it comes from and what's going on. So I write sometimes and let people feel that it's just a story, but underneath there is what I'm telling you is the truth that I've experienced. So I think we're on this wave, but whilst that technology that is sometimes called negative alien agenda is playing out, at the same time, there's all these people on the planet that are going, I'm awake, what can I do? And we're all getting our skills heightened. I know for me, my spiritual ability's gone through the roof in the last sort of couple of years. What I've done, and I'll share quite a few practices so people can actually use them as well, is that I, as an energy healer, I work through clearing my chakras. Most days we have energy that gets stuck. So I say to many people, like, you clean your home, you clean your hair. But actually, you should also clean your energy centers. So if people don't know, we've got 7 main chakras in our body, and then a primary one, the crown one above the head. And keeping these clear helps you channel, sync in with your supernatural skills, and just make life a lot easier. We actually have more chakras we can work with. So they say there's 12 key ones. And because those higher ones are waking up at this time, that makes us able to advance our abilities. The other thing I would also say is to start using your supernatural senses, which is clairaudience, hearing, spirit, clairvoyance, going into meditation and seeing if you're sent visions, and then seeing if it marries up with the outside world. This is how healers would work anyway. And the most important one at this time, especially when you think about the agenda of making you non-human, would be the feeling body. Trusting that your body tells you when you're ill. It tells you what it needs for nourishment. It tells you when something's off. It even tells you when you walk into a room, I don't like this, or I can't trust this. And so using that super skill and going, I'm going to listen to my gut if that's how it comes, or I'm going to listen to that tingly sensation that tells me something's truth. That happens to me a lot and at other people, or listening to the heart. And one really simple practice, if you're not used to working in this way, is to say, do I want to do something? Can I trust someone? Yes or no. Just ask your body yes or no. And a yes will be a feeling of the heart opening and a lifting, and a no will be a sinking feeling.
Yeah.
And that is a great way not to get hoodwinked by things out there that are trying to send you off.
Because I think what I've under, that's great advice there. And I think, again, just speaking to people generally, we have been so indoctrinated over the years. What is happening, what seems to be happening, in my humble opinion, is if there is this kind of takeover of aliens or energy, negative, whatever it is, I don't know, something is definitely not quite right, and I think most people know that. But I think it's very hard because of the systems and the way we live our lives. We give our children to the system, don't we? We trust other people to teach them, or to go to the dentist, or to go to the doctor, or to go to the head teacher and do their job. But we don't really know what that job is. And I know, like, a lot of kids at school now, what they're being taught. I certainly am very happy that my children are no longer at school. So I think as parents or as adults, we have a responsibility to look after our young ones and to educate them and to take them out of those systems as much as we can. Obviously, they do need to be educated. They do need to learn to read and write. And if they want to be a doctor or a scientist, that's fine. But to bring them back to nature, because we are natural beings as well. At the moment, we're natural beings, aren't we? And I think we do need to hang out in nature a great deal and trust. If you think of when that big tsunami happened, I don't think any animals was that. I don't know when it was now, 10 years ago. Oh gosh, in the Far East. But it was quite horrific. But I think no, hardly any animals were killed, because they knew something was happening. They could sort of sense it in the ether and the atmosphere, and they legged it. Whereas humans are sitting on on the beach on their phones and got slaughtered. So because we're not tuning in, as you're saying, to your gut, and I think it's really important, and to trust and not always listen to what somebody else says because they're wearing a white laboratory coat and then with a stethoscope around their neck, and they're the doctor, so they know better. But if it doesn't feel right, then you don't have to say yes. It's hard. It's changing the way we've been trained, isn't it? It's because we have been told to follow authority. I think in our country in particular, we're very good because we're very polite, aren't we? We love to line up and queue and say, oh, sorry, thank you, oh, sorry, excuse me, all the time. And because that's just the way we are in this country. It's getting a little bit different now. I notice on the roads there's a little bit of road rage going on.
Yeah.
So people are getting a bit angry.
Yeah, and I went to a protest with a friend quite a few years ago, and she was like questioning everything, and I was like, how are you like this? And she was like, well, I wasn't brought up here. And unfortunately, sometimes when people are British, they just think, well, it wouldn't happen here.
Yes, that's right.
A kind of a naive, yeah. And then I've had to relearn it with the past few years to not trust anything, and then trust myself first, but without turning against everybody that's trying to do their best. And it's like a funny thing to navigate, because for a while I got really angry at everything, and then I had to relearn.
I think anger is probably a good thing, because that's a start for people thinking, hang on, really? But they told me this, and it's not even the newspapers or the television, and I think people are going to be angry when they realise they have been lied to. I think it's a good idea to watch Alice in Wonderland. I think I need to watch that over Christmas, because she was very curious, wasn't she? And she went down lots of rabbit holes and learned lots of stuff. So and I think that's what a lot of us are doing. We're just learning. But again, it's finding that information, which is partly the reason I wanted to set up Wise Women Weekdays, for people to find alternative information that isn't just on, I don't know, Wikipedia, because who's writing Wikipedia, or from the newspaper, who's writing the newspaper? What is the hidden agenda? If there is one, I'm not saying everything's hidden, but be curious and go into your own intuition. To see what's right and what's wrong for you. And it might be different, what is right for you might be different to what is right for me, but just be curious and ask questions.
Yeah. And I
Definitely.
want
Yeah,
to
sorry,
say
go on.
thank you for that, because I found you at Uprise and Shine in London recently,
Yeah.
having been caring and kind of taken a back seat. And I actually was so grateful to go. I'm so glad it was on and it happened, because like the thing is, sometimes it can feel quite overwhelming trying to know everything about everything. And what was wonderful about that event was there was loads of people that knew stuff about stuff that I didn't. And I don't have the capacity to know that. I kind of have my field where which is very spiritual. And then I got to learn a lot about the laws and, different things.
Mm. Yeah, it's a smorgasbord. I think that's the
Yeah.
thing. I always say I know a little bit. I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, or a Jill of all trades. I know a little bit about many things, but I'm not an expert in anything. And I've always been a bit nosy and curious and chatty, and sometimes it's exhausting. Is that exhausting? Why can't I just accept things as they are and eat my chocolates around the fire or watching the TV? But because I know I'm not put on this planet just to do that, then there's so much more to enjoy in life, in a physical being or in a spiritual element, or to be here to help other people to experience the true reality of what it is to be human. And
Yeah.
it's quite amazing. And I think we are tapping into our sixth sense and other senses, whether it is telepathy or our instinct and all these other things. And that's why I'm excited when I say it's a really good time to be alive, and people think, really? And if you are in the matrix, as we call it, if you are, when I go into think, oh my God, I've got another bills and my interest rates, I've just got a parking ticket yesterday and it's raining and my hair's all a mess. And I think, oh, it's horrible. But then I think, oh, hang on a minute, there's this other world that is also my world, this spirituality and this coming together with other like-minded people that want to learn more. It's just, I think, oh, it's so exciting, because none of that stuff really matters. The commercial, the corporate bits, the companies and buying all these things, these material goods. It's not about that, is it? And we've been fed all this, even Christmas at the moment, buy. And actually this year's the first year ever that I'm not doing it. I'm not buying anything. And it feels really good. Because I think I've been on that treadmill of, oh my God, I've got to buy this and that, and the stress and the financial impact, and then people don't even want it anyway. You get it given back to you the following year.
Yeah. We did the same. We did a budget, and then just said, just get a little wrap up and get yourself something if you want something. And I actually bought all my Christmas presents from the Uprise and Shine. I was like,
oh, wonderful. Oh, that's wonderful.
But I won't say what I got, because then I'll ruin it for my family. But I was like sorted. It was totally stress less, and it felt like I was doing less of the consumerism thing and buying stuff.
Because most
health.
Yeah, I think when I run these events, a lot of, and there wasn't that many in London, but the next one that I'm doing in Sussex, there's a lot of stalls. But yeah, because people are coming from more of a heartfelt background, or foreground, I should say, they're doing it for like the right reasons, rather to get rich and famous and everything. And I think that is again a paradigm that we're leaving behind. This celebrity status, because we are all human. Well, allegedly, we're all flesh and blood and breathing with a soul or a spirit, which is one thing I just wanted to ask you, and I think we should wind down shortly, because I know these go on. I could talk to you forever, and we'll do this again. But a soul and a spirit. So how would you identify the difference or separate? Is there a difference?
Yeah, so there's a very big difference. So I guess I might call it super soul as spirit, and then soul. But my belief and my awareness in what I work is that the soul can be harmed, and the soul can be fragmented, and the soul can be traumatized. So that if you're ever, the easiest way for me to describe it is I was beaten up badly once when I was about 18. And what happened was I always saw that event from outside. I could see it like I wasn't in it. I was viewing it from above. And then when I fully healed it, I was getting craniosacral therapy where I got knocked out. And suddenly it brought the essence back in, the soul part. And what happened then is I could see the whole event from inside my body rather than out. And that's a very simple way to describe what soul loss is from an energetic perspective. So your soul can be harmed, importantly taken, harvested, trapped. This is all the work I do. So knowing your soul's consciousness and reclaiming it, and knowing I have a soul and it's mine, break the laws of that karmic free will that they took, because they're teaching you don't have a soul, or the levels of the soul. So some people go, just connect with spirit and it'll be fine. No, reclaim your soul. It's really important. It's yours. It's your birthright. I also don't believe we should lose our memories at birth. I think that's a program. It's my soul story. I need to remember it. It's important knowledge for me. I didn't come here to forget lessons.
No.
So I believe we have many, many, many soul parts, many soulmates. Souls are just a massive topic. And then we have the super soul, and then spirit, I feel, is the great divine everything. And so there's always a place where you've never been harmed and you're always safe. And there's always that light. So we are always okay. There is always that greater force, whatever you believe it is, to connect in with. And if you let that connection guide you, I think you're always going to be all right. And we will get out of this mess. It's just that the paradigm is trying to drop you from understanding that you're a soul, and you're stopping your connection to that. So, yeah.
I think that's a lovely thing to end on. And I think that is so true, because if you have that feeling, if that's the right word, but it's beyond a feeling, that knowing, that inner knowing that we are all kind of connected, and we have the spirit that goes back wherever it goes, wherever that might be in your mind, whether it's going back, I don't know, to heaven or to God or to the divine or to just the cosmos, who knows. But if you feel that really true, or you have that belief, then you're not in fear. You know, it doesn't matter. Okay, you might get hurt along the way, but none of it really matters, because you're loved, you know, and you are loved, and you just remove the fear. But I think to get to that level of understanding or feeling is very challenging, because there's so many distractions along the way, whether it is Christmas and buying things and paying the bills and watching the last episode of whatever you're watching on the telly. You know, there's so many other things, rather than going back into nature again, hanging out with the trees, with the animals in the woods, go for a swim, whatever it is, walk along the beach, but just connect with nature, and then understand that you're much more bigger than this, you know, this vehicle that carries us. It's a very nice place to be. I often just tune into it. I think, oh, I'm so fed up with everything that's going on, but oh, hang on a minute, this isn't really me. There's another part. Let's go there. It's much better. I don't think it's escapism. It might be escapism. I don't think it is. But
no, me too. I do exactly the same thing. So yeah.
Cool. Well, listen, it's been really lovely talking to you, Cheryl. I hope everybody that has watched it has enjoyed it. So if they have, again, please give us a thumbs up, a like, a subscribe to our little channel, Wise Women Weekdays, and put some comments in. If you'd like to know more about Cheryl, I'll put her details in the bottom. And so just with regards to your plays, is anything happening at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm rewriting the first one to expose who I believe really killed the witches, the healers, which I didn't have the knowledge to do it yet. And then looking to tour it, hopefully in honor of Samhain next year, take it around places. But I'm currently going to go into producer mode of how to do that, and then put up the second one, some readings of the second one, and I kind of want to work with it in audience to see how well it lands, whether it's making sense, about, because it's talking about quite, you know, heavy stuff, the transhumanism stuff, and I want to make it very palatable. So I kind of want to work in communities that are interested in this kind of work and get their feedback, and then rework the play with that. So,
okay. So there's no dates at the moment. This is something in the pipeline for next year. Hopefully, there's no dates at the moment.
No, okay. No dates at the moment.
And do you have a website? I can put the website on so people can contact you.
Yes.
Maybe to bring the play to their local town, their local theatre.
Yeah, would be amazing. Yeah, so 5D Theatre, but I'll send you the link.
Lovely.
And then the Witches Wheel workshops are going to continue throughout the year, and there's one on winter solstice. So for those that want to do the good witchy work.
The good witchy work, which I love. We want witches. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much again for your time. It's been really, really interesting. I'd love to talk to you further. I'm sure we will.
Yes. Sure we will.
On the Wise Women, and I will see you shortly. So yeah. Okay.
Thank you.